Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about Next.js. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, thank you Frederick, you always manage to summarize in 10 minutes intuitively what sporadically comes to mind, but I can never articulate, at least at my stage in my career. What do you think about investing in learning Next.js after you get quite good with React? Would you get more market value since you're more niche focused? I know it would depend on the demand in your location, but do you have any general thoughts about it? So first and foremost, I will say that it's very good of this person to identify that location is something that factors in when we talk about market value. The thing that I have to say about Next.js is that although it's a very useful tool, and absolutely if you know React, there is a chance for you to actually work with it. You should really consider that depending on your region now, most companies do not use Node.js as their backend solution. And fine, but at the same time, this is the thing. With that being the case, like if you just want to be as broad and as applicable for most jobs as possible, it doesn't really matter if you know Next or not. I mean, you can learn it, but it's not. You're not going to see like a pay rise because learning Next.js is not necessarily. It's not going to on average be perceived as something that makes you more or less valuable to the company. It's going to definitely factor in if you mention it in a job interview where it might be relevant. But what you should ask yourself is, okay, what skill set at what level do I need to have in order for a company to feel that I'm actually worth a higher salary? This is an enormously hard question to answer. And I would say that no junior developer should try to play this game because you're going to lose. Or rather, you're not going to. I see people try to play this game, and I tell them you don't understand the fundamental thing that you need to understand before you can play this game. People at, say, my level, and in many cases higher than my level, are going to be able to play that game. The reason is because we have work experience. We have worked in multiple companies, usually over several years, and we know what the companies are valuing in the people that they hire for software development. What does that mean? Well, it basically means that there are reasons as to why one developer is earning more than another developer. There are reasons why one candidate gets the job and one candidate doesn't. There are reasons why we hire certain roles versus other roles. And it depends on the company values, it depends on the hiring manager, it depends on the team composition. There are all these things that factor into what are we looking in our employees. And then here's the kicker. The value of that role depends on not only the availability, like how many people know it, but also what are the stakes for the person when we're trying to get this person. What type of person are we getting? Sometimes these are things that just exist in our minds. An example would be if you are a Scrum Master. You can get paid to be a Scrum Master, but the reality is that most Scrum Masters are completely pointless if you're not doing the coding. Like, let's say that you're just doing the agile stuff. Most teams do not need a dedicated person to say teach them how to do Scrum, but some companies invest for reasons. Not necessarily because they need to have one, but because they want to invest in that person, or they feel like they need it. It's a similar thing with the QAs, where some companies hire testers and quality assurance people to do the testing and the quality assurance together with the developers. And in some companies they don't even use that, like the developers do everything. And those values, there's no real golden rule saying that one is better than the other. It's something that exists in the heads. It's in a sense it's similar to the stock market. A lot of the fluctuations in the stock market has to do with people and their emotions and like how they react to things and their values and so forth. So that's why I think that it's in a sense it is like the stock market. If you haven't been doing software development for all that long, you're not going to be effective at playing this game and in investing. So I'm just going to give you what I think on Next.js versus something else. I don't think that I mean, if you want to learn Next.js, go for it. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But you're not going to see a pay increase because you learn it. I'm pretty sure, because the time, if I find someone who already knows, say, React, and say, I mean, if you're going to do Next.js, then you're basically a full stack developer, so you're going to compete in the full stack developer sphere when it comes to roles. So if I find another full stack developer that knows, say, Express, well, it's a negligible difference between Next.js and Express. Like, there is a difference for sure, but it's not going to be a deal breaker for me if I find a full stack developer with 5 years of experience versus you who know Next.js, and I'm going to do Next.js. Like, I might as well take the person with more experience and probably knows even further things than specifically Next.js. And that's the thing that I've said before, guys. You don't always need to know exactly the thing that they're looking for because it's impossible for you to learn every tool. What's important is, do you have the core skills? That is usually where your base value comes from, and that is the thing that really matters when you want to figure out how are you going to increase your market value. As a junior software developer, I urge you, do not try to figure out what niche to go for in order to make the biggest amounts of money, because you're going to fail. I think that you should learn because you find it interesting, and then I can tell you what is going to, in general terms, work if that is the game that you want to play. In general terms, the people who get paid the most as software developers are the people who can prove that they are extraordinarily good, or like they're extra good, extra experienced, or something like that. There's, as I call, a specialist within something that is perceived as being high value to a company. Now, if you're extra good at Next.js, it's very unlikely that that is something that the average company, because most companies will not be using it, that they're going to feel like, yeah, this thing here we're willing to pay extra for to get someone who's extra good at that stuff. If, let's say, that you could prove that you're an extra good front-end developer, well, that would be a different question, because most companies have an issue with front-end development. They're trying to get in good people and so forth for that sort of role. So they might actually be willing to pay extra to get someone who is more experienced in this area, so that they can train other people and so forth and so forth. And the same thing goes for, say, back-end developers and so forth. It's not necessarily always about years of experience, but that does factor in. Another example would be DevOps. It is extraordinarily hard and high stakes, which adds to the value. To find DevOps engineers who are like proper software developers. They have the experience, they know how to work with cloud solutions, they know how to spin everything up, they know how to set up like on-call rotations and metrics and alerts and like all of this stuff. It's a very vast ecosystem. It's a full-time job to do that sort of thing. So finding people who are really good at that, especially when, if something goes wrong in this area, God forbid, your business is actually very damaged. This gives a lot of incentive to a company to pay quite a lot for that. But say like you're a master of HTML, well, nobody cares. Like really, like if you know all the tags and so, that's not gonna, because I hope that makes sense to you. The value that the company can extract from you being extra good at that thing is not that high, so they don't really care all that much about it. So what I want you to take away from this is that I think that you should, if you're a junior developer, I think that you should try to avoid to play the how can I maximize my market value by learning niched tools or like specific things as much as possible, and try to just focus on the general stuff to begin with. Get a solid foundation, understand like what the common tools are, if let's say you're a full stack developer, understand a front-end framework or like something like React or Angular, etc., etc. Learn a backend language, learn a database, learn how to use Docker, and like learn the basics about working with clouds and cloud solutions, Git, GitHub, Bitbucket, whatever you're using. Learn these basic things first and foremost. because the bulk of your value comes from there. And then when you have worked for a few years and you realize what the companies are valuing once you get a little bit further in your career, you will start to notice that things such as like DevOps and operations and how hard it is to get that really right. So in other words, if you're really good at that, that's actually really valuable because it's high stakes and very few people are good at it. Just as a front-end developer can learn very quickly that most front-end projects are complete shit. So if you're like an architect level understanding front-end developer, someone who can really fix things and really pull things up to the next level, that also adds to your market value. And then the real problem comes: how do you communicate that? How do you make people believe that you're extra good at that thing that they actually value? And that's the thing that's going to give you the next salary, the higher salary. Have a great day.